Good, Snipe. Doing pretty good this evening. How are you? Yeah, that the event is scheduled for November 2nd in Saudi Arabia, which is this would be the second event if they do decide to have it. So really, I don't know. It's up in the air right now. In my personal opinion, it's kind of a catch-22. It's a really messy situation. I mean, this couldn't have come at a worse time. Won't let him wrestle, apparently. Who ran the show? Since Raw 1000. I agree with you. I mean, ever since Raw with the 3 hours, it struggled with that third hour. If when it was two, that made them decide, okay, what's good to go on this week, and then with the 3 hour format, they would occasionally do a show that was 3 hours, but it usually was like a Legends night or Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay. Is there a way we can redo this? Okay. I was talking about how when Raw was 2 hours, they made better use of their time, and they only had 3 hour shows on occasions. I believe I asked the draft. After that, it got cut off. Saw you were still talking. I did, can you give me the gist of what you can rejoin this? Right.
This should be fun. Device default.
Oh, it's back! It's back! Ha 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 ha! Alrighty. Alright.
Anybody?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. I'm just not going to mess with it. I'm going to keep it on my face. Because every time I try to readjust everything, it just goes to shit and clicks out. So maybe it's just too much for my poor computer to handle. I'm going to take the blame on this. And hopefully that's why it's doing that. Okay. Alrighty. So, where I was brushing up on, as this is the third time I'm saying this. Okay. In October 2nd, there was a journalist from Saudi Arabia who was very critical on the Saudi Arabian government and was very fearful for his life. So he sought asylum and moved to the United States. He's been there for years. I think he worked with the Washington Post. And for years, still very critical on the Saudi Arabian government, you know, how aggressive it is, all the women's rights issues and all of that. And earlier, you know, he got basically coaxed into going to pick up marriage documents from a previous marriage so he could legally marry in the United States. So he flew over to Istanbul, Turkey. It's a shame he didn't bring someone to protect him. I can still hear you. And he went in the building and never came out. And apparently there's... Can you hear me? I can hear you. I can hear with no issue. Wait. Eric, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello? Test 1, 2.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me? Oh, man. I wonder... I can... What the hell? I can hear you. Oh, damn it. What the hell? I hate the fact my computer does this every time. This is like the failing podcast.
Hello?
I can hear you.
I know.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank God. Okay.
I think maybe we should take a mulligan on this
A mulligan.
before we get cut off again.
Yeah. Okay. Man, I was getting going too.
I know. I saw you kept going. I wish there was a way I could shoot like a internet flare gun up and say, "Hey, I'm not there."
Yeah. Well, I will say, bottom line, this is a very bad situation for WWE.
I agree.
This is a very, very bad situation.
I know, and it's like they meant to have good intentions, but you know the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But I want to say this: can somebody honestly say that any other of these wrestling organizations would turn down that kind of money?
I have a hard time thinking that they would, and I think the issue is that it's a long-term contract and it's a lot of money, and they already are in.
Right.
They already are involved in it. So I'm thinking that honestly, they might not know what to do. But the thing I'm curious about is what about all the wrestlers and the performers that are afraid to even go because of all this of what's been going on? I mean,
if enough of them are not willing to go, they can't fire all of them.
Well, no, but they would need at least one or two big names to be involved in that.
Right.
So that would be really, I think that would be really important in that instant. But I mean, if they do this Crown Jewel pay-per-view and they talk about how progressive Saudi Arabia is after what recently went down with this journalist, it's going to make them look bad. I think that they need to talk with the royal family and say, listen, if they're going to do the show, say, okay, we're going to still do the show. There's some things we have to discuss before going in. And we have to protect ourselves. Because, number one, WWE is concerned about their image. And
you're right.
They need to protect their image with all the work that they've done. They have worked their ass off for 10 years to avoid the negative stigma that was Chris Benoit.
Right.
And for this to happen, it could fizzle out and go back to where they were like that.
Right.
So they really need, if they're going to do it, at the very least, they need to talk to the royal family and say, hey, we got to lay some ground rules on this because we have to look out for our image too, and we can do this pay-per-view since we're already involved in it. Unless if the U.S. government or Donald Trump says, hey, I need you backing out of this. This is way too much. Honestly, this is bigger than wrestling right now. This whole thing that happened with this journalist, this could be an international this is an international nightmare.
Right. And I agree with that. I mean, it's a rough situation, you know. I mean, there could be a halt on the whole thing, or, you know, maybe they could move it to, somebody suggested move the proceedings to Survivor Series.
Yeah, I mean, they still have all of this. The problem is, you know, what do you do with the money? Are they going to be forced to give it back? Are they going to be sued by the Saudi royal family? I mean, is there any kind of precedent on it? But, man, I got to say, Google Hangouts, honestly, I think part of it is Google Hangouts. You fucking suck. I'm sorry to say this. Google, you need to work your shit and make Google Hangouts more accessible. I don't know if you have a program. I'm not very tech savvy. But at the very least, get a fucking program that's actually stable on the computer so we can actually work this shit. Because I think, honestly, the next time I do this podcast, I'm going to go with Skype. Because at least it could be, in theory, more stable. So, anyway, I'm going to end it now. At least we were able to kind of lay down the point. But that's really all we have. And hopefully, when we do this again, Skype will work a little bit better. I mean, I don't want to fucking use Discord. Discord's fucking stupid. But